forged on the gridiron in September. Perfected in the magic of March. For the fans who love the crunch of the pads, prefer a dunk, and expect nothing but the best. It's Bigger 10. Here's Steve Dace.
Greetings. Welcome to this week's episode of Bigger 10. I'm Steve Dace alongside my co-host, Aaron McIntyre. Good to see you, brother. How are you?
Doing all right. How about yourself?
Other than the dumbassery here in the Big 10 continues, I couldn't be better. But Saturday's coming. That is the deadline for the Big 10 to submit its discovery in that Nebraska trial. So we shall see. Do we make that Saturday deadline, or does the league pull one out of the hat? The president at Nebraska says the league will be voting on a plan to return to football, quote, very soon. I wonder if very soon means before we have to file that discovery in a Nebraska court.
Well, I know you've been on the phone right before we started recording this and taping this. Teddy Greenstein just tweeted that this is going to happen this weekend at the earliest. So I don't really quite understand because, like you said, Saturday is the deadline. You'd think they'd try to do something before then.
Apparently then we're going to have fun with discovery on next week's episode of Bigger 10. All right. Well, good news is we know what next week's episode is about. But let's get to this week's episode, the Big Five this week on Bigger 10, and where to begin. How about wrong again? The Penn State panic porn hoax. Wow. I mean, now, the other show you and I do together, we have been dealing with this for the last 6 months.
It's the air we breathe.
Yes, but in the sports arena, what happened last week after we got done with last week's show is Penn State came out with a study, well, one of its doctors did, saying that 1/3 of its positive COVID-19 tests amongst student athletes in the conference were showing signs of myocarditis. You know myocarditis. Yep. All right. That would be the heart inflammation that seemingly, Aaron, only works against student athletes in the Big Ten, Not anybody in the NBA bubble, not any of the 2,560 players that were in NFL training camps all summer long.
Any athlete in Europe.
Or the ACC or the SEC or the Big 12. Seemingly, myocarditis is specifically targeting Big Ten student athletes. Well, somebody decided, you know what, I don't think that's right. Okay? And decided to do some journalism. Yes, the Washington Post. No, the New York Times. No. Football Scoop stepped in and said, "Hey, we deal with a lot of coaches, man. I don't think that's right." So they started calling the 14 coaches in the Big Ten. Said, "Hey, what are your numbers?" And guess what they found from not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, or 13, but all 14 coaches is this thing was complete and total bunk. And then when they called the doctor to confront him on it,
clarify a little bit.
Let me clarify my point and apologize for any confusion. This is like when people find something out on Twitter that they were told wasn't true and it is, and they tweet out, "Oh, that's what happened here."
That's basically all that needs to be said. It's just another edition of whoops, I did it again, Britney Spears. I don't know what more you can say. It is perfect.
I lied again.
It is perfect, though, that once all of the coaches had come forward, it's only then that Dr. Sebastianelli, I'm doing the scare air quotes there, Dr. Sebastianelli is like, "Oh, yeah, I'm sorry about that. I don't know what I'm talking about."
This thing went worldwide on Twitter. It was trending worldwide on Twitter. Every major sports news outlet from ESPN on down in the country ran with this story. Yeah. How is this guy not a former Penn State physician?
Academia, bro.
I mean, if that's not grounds for being disqualified, then obviously nothing is. Nothing is. Well, except certain viewpoints, of course, like believing in things like the Constitution, but that's another show, I guess. Let's get to more shenanigans at the university administrative level. And this is Mark Schlissel, the University of Michigan president. I wrote a piece for Wolverine Digest, part of the Sports Illustrated Network, on Friday, which has gone viral. And I've done interviews on SiriusXM and other places about this piece. A good source telling me that he is the singular figure really standing in the way of Big Ten football returning this fall. He, of course, is an immunologist, which means he's highly qualified to comment on such matters. The problem is, Aaron, we can't get a comment. He hasn't told us a single specific thing. Not a single one. Not a single specific reason for why it is not safe to play college football in the Big Ten, but it is in the Big 12, the SEC, and the ACC. He has organized a faction within Big Ten administration to say no to fall football. They are digging in their heels, and really, he's the ringleader as the most decorated medical expert amongst the group. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think there could be a number of reasons why Schlissel is the seemingly the ringleader here. I think they all just come down to stubbornness, ego, arrogance, all of those things that elitists provide. And again, there's people who say, well, why don't you get some of these people on your show? Okay, these are Steve and I's opinions. If you don't like them, then maybe you should go, and maybe ask these people yourself and demand answers from these people and their viewpoint themselves. We're trying to do our best to give you both sides. We would like to give you Schlissel's side of the equation here, but he said,
allow me to extend
nothing.
An official invitation to Dr. Mark Schlissel to appear on this program. Trust me, I'll take a day off work on a job that actually pays the bills to conduct that interview if we could make it happen.
So this is just a cut and dried case of probably ego and arrogance and a combination of the two right now. I don't think there's too much. I don't think it's too much more complicated than that.
If they had specifics that could make those SEC rednecks that they hate so much down south look bad for putting their players at risk, folks, they would have done it. Yesterday, the ACC put out a statement saying, hey, our medical advisory group says we're good to go. Our players want to play. University of North Carolina, according to U.S. News and World Report, the #1 medical school in the country for primary care. #1 in the entire country. The University of Virginia out of the ACC, #7. In terms of medical research, both the University of Pittsburgh and Duke University are 2 of the top 15 medical schools in the United States, according to U.S. News and World Report. So are they now podunk junkos, renegade football factories who don't care about their student athletes? Trust me, the Big Ten loves to claim the moral high ground. If it had specifics that could shame these other conferences that are going forward, it would have done so by now. And that brings us to our next issue. And I think this is now why we saw something extraordinary on Saturday. The University of Michigan's football coach, Jim Harbaugh, out marching with his players in defiance of his own university president, pointing out publicly, that's actually Jim Harbaugh's dad, Jack, pointing out publicly that he can't get a conversation with his president. He gets paid about 8 times more than Mark Schlissel does. He's certainly worth a hell of a lot more to the university than the university president is, given the revenue that the Michigan football program generates for that school and the community of Ann Arbor every single year. And he can't even get a word about what's going on, why are they doing this, what it would take for football to come back. I don't even know what to say about that other than it's just beyond inexcusable, Aaron.
Beyond inexcusable, I kind of have a slightly different. It's just a punk. It's just a punk move from the university's president. Do you think Mark Schlissel? Let me put it this way. Do you think Jim Harbaugh, I was around Bo Schembechler for a number of years. Mr. Rugged individual do you think Jim Harbaugh is intimidated by the likes of Mark Schlissel? Or even if his name was Dark Blissel, do you think a guy like that?
Probably not.
Probably not.
On the other hand, wearing a Buckeye helmet? Sorry, I'm sorry.
On the other hand, do you think somebody like Mark Schlissel is intimidated by somebody like Jim Harbaugh? Probably on a personal level.
Not
so
to
that's
mention,
just a punk move.
Again,
I don't think
if he had specifics to justify his decision, would he not have shared them with Mark or with Jim Harbaugh?
Yeah.
By the way, one of the other things I heard from my source on the Schlissel front is that he is essentially daring the Big Ten. There's another faction of Big Ten presidents that want to vote to play, and it's beyond the 3 that we know about. There's more than that. Okay. But he is daring them to go forward with a season without Michigan. Saying, fine, you guys want to go play in October. Michigan won't play, and you won't have the Michigan-Ohio State game. He's essentially he's willing to weaponize the leverage of Michigan football for it to not play, which to me is just reprehensible. Absolutely just reprehensible. Maybe you have the goods. Show us. You're the immunologist. You know, he never visited the football building one time this whole summer with all those players there to make sure that they were being taken care of. They were obeying the safety protocols, the social distancing, etc. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just absolutely heinous and despicable. Let's get to the next here on our Big Five rundown of topics here on Bigger Ten. I wanted to give some credit to a Big Ten alum, former University of Iowa athletic director Bob Bowlesby, who is now doing a phenomenal job running the Big 12 conference. He was asked this week at a press conference about whether the virus has been politicized and college football, whether to play or not, has been politicized. Look at this quote, governors and health officials are really the ones in charge. So therefore, when you consider that, the virus is really the one in charge. But college football and other sports are popular enough in making a decision not to have them is not going to help an elected official, unquote. So I know a lot of you in our comment section, because I see it, Gretchen Whitmer's why they're not playing, blah, 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 blah. Folks, they're not helping their cause. No one, except, well, I should take that back. In the Pac-12, you can get elected on. We're never leaving the house ever again. Don't go anywhere. Don't do anything until there's never a vaccine. Hide out forever and get a government check. That's popular out west. We've seen that in real time, right, Aaron? They love that message, okay? And their players don't want to play. As the Stanford coach, David Shaw, told us, they were ecstatic they didn't have to play. So they're good to go, okay? But in our footprint, that's not how we roll here. And it's not helping anybody. In fact, if you hate Donald Trump, having him come out and say favorably, hey, let's get the Big Ten playing, while your league doesn't play, that's actually going to help his reelect, not the other way around. Okay? So I think that's the point that Bowlesby's making. If you are trying to politicize this, I do think college football has been politicized. I really don't think it's much about Trump as much as in our league. I think these university presidents saw this as their chance to get back a hold of Big Ten athletics with Jim Delaney out of the way. And I think that's how it's been politicized. But if you're doing this to generate the outcome of an election on November the 3rd, you're going to probably not get the results you want. People want college football to come back.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in the next segment with one of your would you rather comments. But it is unfortunate to some degree. I think the people who are making it political right now, anyway, are not the ones who are actually making the decisions about whether or not they will play. Now, that might have been true 3 or 4 weeks ago before I couldn't have imagined the Big Ten just completely bungling this to the degree that they have. That might have been true 3 or 4 or 5 weeks ago that the people making the decisions in the Big Ten did maybe have some sort of political bent to this. But I think the people making it political right now are not the ones. I think they're in the media. I think that's there's just fan bases sniping at each other. So I don't think it's the ones. I don't think it's the presidents at this point that necessarily are making it political.
And then very quickly, finally, speaking of the president, these were his latest words. He tweeted this out on Sunday. Big Ten football is looking really good, but may lose Michigan, Illinois, and Maryland. He means the states, not just the universities, because Illinois and Michigan have 2 schools there. Because those governors' ridiculous lack of interest or political support, they will play without them, ? So there's the president throwing some shade at the Democratic governor in Michigan, Illinois, and the Republican governor in the state of Maryland. All right, we'll come back, play our weekly game of Big Ten Would You Rather next.
Bigger Ten is brought to you by Michigan Podcast. If you like what you're hearing today and would like to support us, head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/Michigan Podcast, where if you live somewhere where sports wagering is illegal, you can find Steve's picks for various games for just $5 a month. In the process, you can say thank you for creating this podcast on YouTube or via podcast, wherever you listen. Patreon.com/Michigan Podcast.
Here it is, our weekly game of Big Ten Would You Rather, and Aaron, you are up. Would you rather Trump publicly make a play to help Big Ten football return, or want him to stay out of it for fear some may keep us shut down just to spite him?
4 weeks ago, I would have definitely taken the latter. I wanted Trump to stay out of this. I wanted this to still be, just because I thought maybe at that point, right before they made or supposedly had a vote, I still thought that there was some finagling going on right there. You had the players kind of come out and release statements all across, led by Trevor Lawrence. I thought if Trump gets involved then, or if any politician gets involved then, I'm like, no, this is going to go. Now that it has been fully politicized, and I couldn't have imagined, like I said just a few minutes ago, couldn't have imagined that the Big Ten would completely and utterly bungle this the way that they have. I mean, the PR that they have lost. I mean, they have utterly been destroyed in the PR war. The way that they've lost this, by all means, get the biggest bully pulpit in the land to start cheering for football. Totally all for that. So I would definitely rather Trump continue to push the Big Ten to play. Next one is for you. Would you rather have no season this year at all if it meant Michigan beat Ohio State next year?
Oh, man. No, because I can't guarantee I'm going to be alive next year. Okay, so no, I would rather still have a season this fall, but that's a tough question, man. That's a tough one.
Not a very fair question, though.
Yeah. All right, this one is for you. Would you rather the Big Ten just return with whoever wants to play, or not return until everyone wants to play?
This is where the Schlissel thing, weaponizing the game, really
it's a douche move, bro.
Just some words pop into the back of my mind that I can't really say right now unless we'll get demonetized. This is where that just really ticks me off. Because you want, what's wrong? Like, okay, who cares about Rutgers? Who even cares about Minnesota not playing if they don't want to play? And I don't think Minnesota wants to play based on their lack of words, lack of action in trying to play this season. But yeah, what would be wrong with just the teams that can or want to play playing this year? Well, I don't think you're even going to get a partial number of Big Ten teams to play if it's without the game, just because of the draw of the game. I don't think that's going to happen, which is why that really ticks me off from Mark Schlissel, and it should tick off every single Big Ten team of Iowa, Nebraska, all of these that are actually willing to play should really, really tick you off. Last one is for you. Would you rather be Mark Schlissel or Kevin Warren?
Kevin Warren.
Yeah.
Because at least I know I've actually been a man at some point. We'll come back with our question of the week and our Twitter poll results next. This week's Twitter poll results, we asked you, who are you angry at about no Big Ten football? 59.9% of you said the university presidents. 33.3% of you said Kevin Warren. 6.7% of you suck at life by saying no one. I agree.
I'm ashamed to have you in this audience, just to be quite frank.
And frankly, our goal is to drive away.
Yep.
You're not worthy of this program. And it's frankly not much of a program, which speaks volumes about what you're worth. All right, let's get to this week's question of the week from Dustin Feldman, who asks, why can't someone be held accountable for their lies? I don't know, man. I mean, that Penn State professor should be disbarred, whatever they call it in the medical profession, fired from the university. So, I mean, what he did there was absolutely reprehensible. The fact that Mark Schlissel has the power to engineer a decision of this magnitude with untold wealth, prosperity, livelihoods on the line, and no transparency whatsoever, man. I don't know. You know what, man? I don't know. What's Siberia like this time of year? I don't know what to tell you.
How about Azkaban? Azkaban for everybody.
Yes. And you get a cell, and you get a cell,
and you get a Dementor, and you get a Dementor.
All right, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Bigger Ten. Who knows what tomfoolery and douchery the Big Ten will unveil on Saturday when it has to meet Discovery in a Nebraska court. But you know we'll be here next week to talk about it right here on Bigger Ten. For Aaron McIntyre, I'm Steve Deace. We'll see you then.